Joining us now, the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass. Mayor Bass, thank you for joining us. I know it's a very busy week for you. I want to start with, can you describe for us the atmosphere in your city right now? You warned against protests getting violent. Are people listening?
I think so. I mean, I think that it has really been a lot calmer over the last couple of days. Again, we're encouraging people, exercise your First Amendment right, but your First Amendment right doesn't include violence and vandalism. What is happening now, there's probably 20,000 people in downtown LA, and everything is peaceful. You know how these things happen sometimes. It's at the end of the protest, maybe people who are not even connected to the protest that get involved in this type of activity. But we have definitely seen far less in the last couple of days. Now, you know also that these protests are taking place all over the city. So all over the city, and I should say all over our county. And just a little bit of context, Los Angeles is 500 square miles. And the protests that have been happening before today were taking place in not even 1 square mile. So unfortunately, the Trump administration has blown it up to create a very false picture that the city was in chaos, and nothing could be further from the truth.
You said far less. Do you mean far less violent or far less protesters? Because the protests themselves have been absolutely massive.
Right. No, I meant in terms of arrests. For example, the first night of the curfew, there were over 100 arrests. Last night, there were 19, and none of them were for violence or vandalism. They were for curfew as well as unlawful assembly. And so the character has changed, you know, as well as the numbers. But I will tell you that the protests every day have not been massive. The numbers have been up and down. There was a very large protest on Monday after our beloved labor leader, David Huerta, was released. There was a very large protest, protest there, as well as a vigil. But for the most part, the numbers have been up and down. The massive protest is taking place right now.
Now, when you talk about there was 100 people arrested Monday night, last night it was just 19. Who's conducting this? Who's managing it? Is this the LAPD, which you oversee, or is it the National Guard, which normally the governor would have control of, but right now it's been federalized?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, Stephanie, is that the National Guard, the federalized National Guard, so they're not even like the normal National Guard, they are protecting one building. They are not involved in crowd control. They're not interacting with the crowds. And so who is keeping peace in our city is absolutely the LAPD, with support from the sheriffs and also the surrounding cities when it's needed. And so the portrayal of the city that it took the president's intervention to calm things down, I'm sure you know by now, he proclaimed that when the National Guard wasn't even here. And this is not, shocking. We've seen this happen before. So now that there are rumors, of the Marines here, the problem is that those kind of things that are happening, whether it's the federalized National Guard or whether it's the Marines, we're operating on rumor because we don't know specifically what is going on and what is their mission.
Are you or your office communicating with the president or the White House? Because a great deal of communication and coordination would be essential given the size and scope of this.
Attempting to, but have not heard back.
So how do you know what they're doing? Rumor or watching it on TV or reading their tweets?
Well, that is the point. Rumor. There's sightings all over the city, but for the most part, none of the sightings have been verified in terms of the Marines and the federalized guards. And I mean, if you think about it, the Marines are trained in warfare on foreign soil. The idea that we would have Marines in a city that is under control, I mean, have there been skirmishes here and there? I mean, yes, that kind of thing happens all the time. Has it happened to the extent that we needed help? No. And in normal times before this, if we've needed the help, the governor is always there. He would send the National Guard if we needed it. But if this whole situation hadn't happened, we wouldn't have needed the Guard. But also, let's just be clear. Today, the protests There's no King's protest about the military parade. This protest, as you well know, has been planned for months and is happening all over the country. The protests that have been happening prior to today have been because of the ICE raids and the manner in which they've been carried out. So if it wasn't for the ICE raids, you wouldn't have had protests all week long. The only protest would have been today as part of the national effort.
Are you seeing any changes yet in the ICE raids? We saw the president change his position in the last couple of days, most likely because of business lobbying groups urging the president not to be going after farm workers, those who work in the hospitality industry, people working day in and day out to help the American economy and help businesses run. Are you seeing any shifts in the way these ICE raids are taking place? I know the president shifting his position has only happened in the last 24 hours.
Well, let me just tell you that the bottom line is we don't know. We don't know. I mean, okay, it's fine. You're not going to run through the fields. You know, Los Angeles doesn't have agricultural fields. And with
you
hotels
got restaurant
and
workers.
Well, and we have heard that, but we don't know that. That's what I mean in terms of, you know, trying to govern based on rumor. No one would have expected that they would have been chasing people through Home Depot parking lots or hanging out near schools, especially on graduation day. You know, so it is a sense of uncertainty in this city that has really contributed to a pall over the city in terms of fear. Now, you want to talk about our economy, and I know you know this as an economist. If there are entire sectors of our economy in Los Angeles that without immigrant labor, they would not function. Case in point, the construction industry, you know, and hospitality, of course. But we have a lot of rebuilding that we need to get done. And there is a list of sectors of our economy that cannot function without immigrant labor. So that's great if it's true that he's pulled back on restaurants and hotels, but which restaurants and which hotels? Are they the mom and pop restaurants in East LA and in the Valley and in South LA? Or are there giant chains? And so I think that the business owners, whether it's a giant chain or a small mom and pop, they all need relief and they don't need to be in fear. But it's one thing to say you're not going to raid the workforce. Do you think the customers want to come out? People don't want to come out. There's store shelves that are empty because people are not showing up. We've heard of graduations where 50% of the parents showed up. So it's not just a question of we're not going to bother the workforce. But what about the clients? Will they actually want to come to a restaurant? And we're finding that there is a sense of fear throughout not just the city, but, you know, LA County has 88 cities in it. 10 million people. LA County is larger than 40 states.